I want to turn to Venezuela. I've actually got an update for you. You may not have even seen from your girl, Susan Collins. She did decide, your fave, she did decide to vote now to advance a measure that would require Congress to okay any further hostilities with Venezuela. The vote was 52 to 47. Senators Paul, Hawley, Murkowski, Collins, and Young voted with all of the Democrats, including John Fetterman, which was another one who voted against the same thing before. And if people recall, there was a war powers resolution previously, and it was pretty close. Was pretty close to the numbers required for it to pass. And then the Rubio came in and lied to them and said, "Oh, don't worry, we're not gonna attack Venezuela. We would never do that. You don't need to pass this. It's fine." Collins apparently fell for that. In any case, let me get your reaction to her flipping her vote now and that original total cowardice on her part.
Yeah, I mean, good. At the same time, you could have. I mean, this is just political. It's cowardice and it's political malfeasance. I mean, I'm sorry, you cannot tell me that you didn't know that this was coming. We've been killing people in the Caribbean illegally since September, for Christ's sake. So, this is Collins doing what she usually does, which is where there's a point where she feels like politically she gets to make a move. But I have no. I'm under no illusions that Susan Collins has maybe somehow changed her core belief structure in the role of the Senate in keeping Republican administrations who wage illegal wars accountable. I don't really see that changing, and so yeah, I mean, I'm glad she's voted for this, but it's just a political move. But the good news is that means that here in the state of Maine, she got feedback from a lot of people, including Republicans. That's the only way that she would have changed that vote, because she is purely a craven political animal. So that's a good sign that even Republican voters, I'm sure, were calling her offices and flooding them with their anger and frustration about starting yet another stupid illegal war in a foreign country so some rich guys can make money off of oil. I mean, we've done this before. We know what this movie looks like.
Yeah. And by the way, I feel like I'm losing my mind because I just assumed everybody had the standard of like, hey, the only time it's moral and ethical to do war is if there's like threat of imminent attack against us, that like we're supposed to be the good guys. We're supposed to do defensive wars by nature, right? You think of like World War II, for example. And like somehow now nobody ever talks about that or states that position, and everybody just assumes like, no, we get to do wars for whatever reason we want, whenever we want, however we want, wherever we want. And I just feel like I'm in the freaking Twilight Zone here, because I'm like, why does nobody say that anymore? Why does nobody say, hey, here's an idea, only defensive wars for protection against imminent attack?
This is something that like has frustrated me deeply about this conversation, is that there like within the Democratic Party, there is this obvious opposition to the war in Venezuela. But there doesn't seem to be like a deeper critique of the foreign policy that has kind of brought us here for decades. And there's no deeper conversation about the need to legitimately pull war powers back into the hands of Congress. And that to me is that's the fundamental problem. Yes, the Venezuela thing is bad. Also, I mean, it's been allowed to happen because for decades, Congress has abdicated its role in war making.
Right. Yep.
And I'm sorry, since World War II, it's hard for somebody to point to U.S. military force that I feel is like legitimately justified for real American interests. Definitely been used for the interest of politicians, definitely used for the interest of corporations and for business. But I fail to see how almost any use of American military force post-1945 has really benefited the working people of the United States.
Yeah.
Totally.
It's wild to watch the number of people who imagine that this one will be different. You know, that I mean, Rubio is out there explicitly like, oh, the comparisons with Iraq or Libya are ridiculous. It's totally different. Like,
he was like, they're different places.
Yeah. And,
like, oh, okay.
And then,
I guess that's enough.
But like, and that's one thing. But then the number of like random people on Twitter who seem to think that like Trump stealing Venezuela oil is somehow going to directly benefit them and not a bunch of rich oligarchs and himself. Like, I mean, like, how are you convincing yourself of this? It's very dispiriting how well some of the war propaganda works is one thing, but I also am curious. It's not like Venezuela is totally different from things that we've done in the past. I mean, people use the example of Panama, for example, where there was a similar operation. But I do think it's, in its sense, the character of it is different because they don't even try to pretend like there's some other noble ideal. And I think that brazenness, I think that is actually meaningful.
It's satanic.
That we're just announcing to our own population and to the world, we are doing it because we can and we want to, and we're going to come in and steal your stuff whenever and however we want to. And so it means that there's literally no constraint because there's no ability to like hypocrisy shame and expose that really they're doing it for the oil. It's like, no, they told you they're doing it for the oil. Their whole ethos is just like evil out on display.
So it is, I think for those of us who have had like an anti-imperial or anti-colonial critique for some time, this seems like a unique moment in history where we don't even have to like explain it anymore.
Right.
They're like, no, we're doing this so we can impose our will on this country and steal its resources through military force and violence. And what is fascinating to me, though, are the amount of people who have been, like their brains have been fried by, like, American military adventurism under the guise of democracy, under the guise of fighting tyranny for so long, that even in this case, even when Donald Trump says, no, we're doing it to steal the oil, give it to American oil companies, and we're going to stay there for years. Then there are a bunch of other people who are like, but let's not forget to talk about the democracy issue. I'm like, what the fuck? Sorry,
you're allowed to curse here.
It's as though they can't even stop themselves. They've done it for so long. And here we are with it just laid bare. And then these folks who come out who are just like, I mean, but we still have to talk about that is kind of a good thing. Like, no, it's not. It's not a good thing.
They got to do all the throat clear. Maduro was a bad guy.
He's evil. He's terrible.
Like,
he's this and that. Like, so is fucking Trump. Should Xi overthrow us? Are you kidding me?
Well, you know who else? You know who else was a really, really bad guy? Was Saddam Hussein.
Right.
Now, I was under the impression that 23 years later, we all pretty much agreed that that was a terrible idea, and that the outcome of that was just a total waste and an absolute travesty, and in many ways a crime. And yet here we are, 23 years later, and people are like looking, and they're doing it again. And I'm like, it's not about if anybody's a good guy or a bad guy. Also, I'm sorry. If being a democratic leader or imposing force on your population was the criteria for American military invasion, I mean, we would just invade half of our allies.
Right.
I mean, we're back in the former ISIS guy in Syria. Like, let's be real.
Trump bear hugs Netanyahu. Trump bear hugs MBS. I mean, this is psychotic. By any standard, Maduro is better than Netanyahu.
The Saudis cut up an American journalist with a chainsaw. Right. I mean, like, what are we talking about here? This is absurd. And so there is, to me, like, there's almost an element of welcome clarity from the Trump administration on this, in which they're just like, no, we're dispensing with it. We're actually just doing imperialism. That's it. It's resource extraction with military force, and that's our thing. It's in our hemisphere. It's our right to do it. We'll do whatever we want. We don't care. And again, like, I'm not saying I clearly am not supportive of this, but there isn't. I'm like, well, thank God, in a way, that at least we can dispense now with the nonsense. And yet, meanwhile, we've got a whole element of the media and political apparatus that are just so broken.
They use the drug excuse.
Run cover for it, even when they think they're against it. It's insane.
Or I like the take that has emerged in some mainstream circles, like liberal circles as well. That's like, Trump didn't even do the regime change enough. Like, the regime is still in power, and poor Marina Machado, like, is never going to get her day in the sun. It's like, no, that's not the problem.
That's like complaining that you didn't put Ahmed Chalabi in immediately when you overthrew Saddam. What's wrong with you? Like, that's not the problem. That's not the problem. They used the drug excuse, Graham, for like, I don't know how long, a month or two. But then Trump decided to pardon the former Honduran president who trafficked $20 billion worth of drugs into the country. And so that obviously blew that up. And by the way, when they brought Maduro to the U.S., the feds immediately dropped the charge that he was the head of some cartel they made up.
Well, they didn't drop the charge. They removed that from the indictment because they're like, yeah, we kind of made that shit up. That was a CIA creation, that cartel de los Solos or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, like a complete fiction. And I mean, obviously a complete fiction because, they took it right out. Because they're like, oh, this is not real. We can't do this in an actual court.
Can't prove this.
I mean, this is insane. And like also on the drug front, I'm sorry, the Sackler family still has their names on hospitals.
Exactly.
That's
exactly
right. I mean, come on.
And let's read let's read Seth Harp on what was going on in Afghanistan.
That's right.
The way drug trafficking skyrocketed when we were there.
Let me just point out to a point you made earlier. It's crazy to me how everything has been flipped and reversed. So we had a war powers action to attempt to block what they were going to do in Venezuela, but like, that's not how it's supposed to go. You're supposed to get war powers to approve the action in the first place. So they like flipped the burden of proof and made it so that you're allowed to do it until we officially say no through Congress. And that's not right. And it's so indicative to me of the times we live in that everything is flipped and reversed and immorality has become morality and vice versa. And they get away with anything they want to get away with. Because the fact that they couldn't even pass something to say, don't do an illegal and offensive war against a country that didn't attack us, that you're doing on behalf of the Epstein class and the billionaires. To me, that is just, it shows, I've been using this term a lot lately, the moral collapse among the aristocracy in the U.S. There's a genuine moral collapse.
I agree entirely. I mean, it's a moral collapse. I also think it's kind of a, how do I put this? We've had a political system, especially over the last 40 odd years, that has elevated a certain kind of person who has a certain kind of ideology and in a kind of like an emotional constitution. And those people that excelled in this kind of more transactional, performative, theatrical politics of the past 40 years, they are incapable in many ways of understanding the moment they now find themselves in. And so I agree that it is, I don't think, I'll be honest, those are people who lack morals.
Right.
Like people that succeed in that kind of political like apparatus, they tend to be people that have no real political ideology, have no real beliefs. They're very happy to be malleable, change their positions over time just to hold on to power. And so to me, it's no surprise that we get here and much of that apparatus is just like morally bankrupt and corrupt and also incapable of understanding what the hell's going on. I mean, this is like the Chuck Schumer situation. I used to be really mad at him. I've actually gotten to a point where, like, I don't think he can do anything differently. I don't think he's capable in some ways of understanding what is going on. And because of that, like, that's why they continue to not be able to wield any kind of power. And it's deeply frustrating and concerning. It's also, though, for me, evidence that we need to rip this whole thing down.
Yeah.
This is not about reform. I'm sorry.
Right.
Like I'm not running as a reform candidate. I'm not going to go down to Washington, like convince people to do this different. This is about
revolution,
grassroots movement building to retake this whole thing. Yeah. We need to conduct politics in an entirely different way. And fundamentally, I think a lot of Americans agree with that. And that's a bipartisan feeling. That's not like a Democrat-Republican thing. People are fed up with this stuff. And even though people are falling for war propaganda yet again, like I said, if Susan Collins is changing her tune, that means she's feeling the heat.
Yeah.
And not just from progressive voters in Maine. That means she's feeling the heat from a lot of people in Maine. And that's a good sign.
I mean, I held you up all the time as like an indication that there's a possibility now that didn't exist before because, you know, the way you position yourself, the way you're just completely unvarnished, the positions you take, and then the fact that, you know, you're up against the governor of Maine who has the backing of Chuck Schumer and the DSCC. I mean, in a previous
and
era.
you're 80 points up.
Yeah, I mean, in a previous era, you would be, you know, you wouldn't stand a chance. Like me and Kyle would be out there cheering for you, and all the liberals would be voting for Janet Mills, right? And it'd be overwhelming. And you know, so the fact that you've got a real shot, I think you're probably the favorite to win this Senate seat at this point.
Probably.
I feel like that is genuinely marks a different moment, and so I'd love for you to talk about, you know, what you are hearing from Maine voters, what you are hearing from people who were like, you know, normie Democratic liberal voters who in another election cycle may have voted for Janet Mills and been all in for her, and why they're with you instead this time.
So it's funny, often people will say that too. They're like, you know, 10 years ago, you never could have done this. I'm like, yeah, and 10 years ago, I never would have done this. Like, 10 years ago was different. I don't know what to tell you. Yeah, sure, it wouldn't have worked. But like 10 years, I've not been trying to be in politics.
Your Reddit history makes that very clear. Yeah.
Right, exactly. Like, yeah, I've been, like, I have not lived
your
some
old Reddit
life
post, my old
building.
tweets, it's all in the past. Don't worry about that.
Exactly. But like, so I mean, like, this is, like, I'm in this because I just have a theory of change. I have an understanding of American, frankly, history, in which I think we are in a very unique moment, and I just wasn't seeing the kind of politics that I think is necessary to meet the moment. And that is resonating, not because like we're good at messaging, not because we have like some people are like, oh, you've got like a really good, you know, your social media is great. I'm like, yeah, but that's not why. I mean, like, it's the you know, normie people are going to go pay consultants to also have good digital media platforms. If you're saying mealy-mouthed nonsense, no, it doesn't matter how good your social media team is. Everybody thinks you're full of shit because you are.
Yeah.
And it's been fascinating going around Maine because I'm on the road constantly. I've been all over the state. I've talked to a ton of people. A lot of people will actually say this outright. They'll be like, 5 years ago, you would have scared me. And I'm like, yeah, that's fair. And they're like, but it's clear that like that all the stuff that we used to be worried that like Bernie was too much. A lot of folks now are like, Bernie was definitely right. We needed Medicare
Bernie was
for
too
all.
little. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we needed all of these things earlier that might have kept us from getting to where we are right now, but we didn't do them. But there's also just kind of and this is why I think we're definitely going to win this thing. There is an up-down dynamic now that is existing in a way that I don't remember. Like we always think about left, right, conservative, liberal, Democrat, Republican. But as I go around Maine, I run into a lot of Republicans, and I run into a lot of independents, a lot of unenrolled voters who fundamentally grasp the idea that it is about working people, middle-class people, versus the system itself, versus the political establishment that for decades and decades and decades has been at the whim and met the needs of corporate power, billionaire power, and to serve their own personal interests. People just get that. You don't even have to like really explain it. You just say it out loud and everybody's like, yeah, of course, no shit. And that to me is that's what gives me a lot of hope here. And I mean, this goes back to that kind of earlier question, Crystal, about, you know, is it too late? I mean, it's why I don't think it is too late. Because as I go around, I'm amazed at how many folks who are willing, by the way, to like not agree with you on some pretty fundamental things. I mean, I've had lots of folks who like don't agree with me on a number of, I would say, fairly core issues, but are just happy that I'm not of the system itself.
Yeah.
And that gives me a lot of hope. But it also just shows, I think, how far this has all gone. I mean, and how many people just feel that we're on the edge. And we don't want to go over the edge. The edge is dark. It's bad down there. And the only way that we're going to claw ourselves back from it, in my opinion, is a kind of politics that actually meets the needs of everyday Americans and not those in power, which seems fairly simple to grasp to me. But, many establishment politicians still disagree. But that's why they're going to lose. So that's all right.
That's right. Yeah. It gives me hope to hear that you have people who don't agree with you necessarily coming up and saying, I'm voting for you, I'm supporting you because, I think you're an outsider. I think, you meet the moment. But I'm curious what your answer is. How do we deal with the cult? Like, I'm perfectly comfortable now calling it a cult, and to just give evidence of that. It was about 50%, actually, no, it was about 40% or so of Republicans supported military force to invade Venezuela prior to Trump doing it. After it, that shot up to 74% and nearly doubled. You also had, Crystal was showing me a poll the other day that among MAGA Republicans, self-described MAGA Republicans, the number shot up to 97% now support the invasion of Venezuela. So I don't know what to do about the cult. I don't know what to do about the people who have truly sacrificed their independent critical thinking skills and are just willing to go along with whatever Trump says. I feel like that's a different problem. Again, it makes me happy that there are some people who you are kind of deconverting some people. And evidence of that is Trump went from about 45% approval all the way down to about now 35% approval. So there are people who are still bleeding away, but I don't know what to do about, the ones who the 25% that under no circumstances will ever move, and they're out there cheering on ICE murdering innocent people in the street.
We beat them.
Right.
That's it. There is an element within our population where it's fairly clear at this point, persuasion is likely not going to work. Material conditions there are going to be people who could be homeless, having everything ripped away from them by the apparatus themselves, and might still find a way to justify their defense of the apparatus, right? But they're not a majority. That's the important part here for me, where we need to convince enough people to win and to rebuild power. That's what we have to do. There are always going to be a portion of our society who I think in some ways are going to lean heavily into white supremacy, who are going to lean heavily into the legacies of our settler colonial past. And that's just the way it's going to be for a long time. That's a cultural thing, and that's going to take generations to fix. But we can't, and this is the important thing here, we can't build a politics where we continue to kind of sell out our own ideology or our own morals to try to appeal to those folks.
Yes.
Because you're not going to get them.
Right.
You're never going to get those folks to vote for you. And that's okay. You got to get everybody else to vote for you. And, 40% of Republicans, that's not that many people. It's a lot of people. But in the electorate, that's not that big. You can win with not that.
True.
And so there's
especially when you consider the number of people who don't even vote, Well,
and I will always believe that those of us with more, I would say, progressive economic populist politics, it is in our benefit to get those people re-engaged than trying to swing towards either the right or towards corporate interests. I don't think that helps us. I think we're trying to engage more voters, not try to convince people that in many ways I don't think will ever vote for us at all.
Yeah.
But in the end, the answer is winning power. That's it. And once we've got it, we can, in many ways, ignore them and build a system that's going to benefit them. I mean, that's the funny thing.
Right.
We bring around universal health care. It benefits everybody.
That's right.
We break up corporate monopolies. We go after these institutions that for decades have just been stealing from working class Americans. That's going to benefit all those folks. And someday they'll probably realize their lives are better, and some of them won't. And you know what? That's okay. We're not in the job of persuading everybody. We should be in the job of building power and then having it and then wielding it and leading in a way that's going to give this country back to the people that live in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's it's a rather simplistic answer, but at this point we're in broad strokes politics these days, so that's what we've got.
Graham, my last question for you. You mentioned universal health care. I saw your wife gave an interview that you guys are planning to travel abroad to pursue IVF because it's too expensive in Maine. First of all, it's exciting that you are trying to have a baby. So excited for you about that and thinking about you guys with that. But just talk about, what that landscape looks like and the way that our broken healthcare system is affecting you and your family right now.
Yeah, so we've been trying to have a kid for about 2 years. No joy. We began to look into IVF last spring, actually around this time last year, and there's only one IVF clinic in New England, out of Boston. And
oh my God!
Their closest, actually outpatient clinics, in Portland. We live 3.5 hours away. We're in Eastern, and it cost, I think, $25,000 just for the procedure. Not even the medications, not any of the stuff. My wife, Amy, had a friend who had gone to Norway and was like, it was great and it was cheap. So we reached out to a Norwegian clinic, and it's 1/5 the price.
Wow.
So they mailed us the medications, but they bought them at a clinic, at a pharmacy in Norway where they cost no money. Here in the States, they cost thousands of dollars. Mail it to us. We do the meds here. We're leaving on Saturday. We'll be gone for 2 weeks. So I'll probably be off the radar for a little bit. So we go over, and the whole thing, including airfare, including being in an Airbnb for 2 weeks, including eating out at restaurants, it's going to cost us, in the end, probably 1/4 to 1/3 of what it would have cost if we'd done it here in the United States. And we can't do it in the United States. We don't have the money. It's just we don't have that kind of money lying around. We don't. Yeah. So, it was just spectacular to me. Oh, and then furthermore, I'll just finish with this. When we called that clinic here in New England, we had to pay a $500 non-refundable fee to schedule a 15-minute intake call. 6 months later. 6 months later, we paid it because it was before the Norway thing happens. We get in touch with this clinic in Norway on a Monday. And they're like, do you want to do an hour-long intake exam with the surgeon on Thursday? And we're like, sure. So we call in, do the thing for an hour. It's a great thing. At the end, I'm like, how much do we owe you? And they're like, why would you give us money for this? We didn't do anything. And I'm like, that's it. We're going to Norway.
We're going to Norway. Wow.
It's insane. But it really does. It's amusing in how absurd it is, but it really gets to the core of this is what you get when you got a healthcare system that's built primarily around profit. That's it. It just extracts. We're treated like a thing that gives it money. We're not treated like human beings. Right. We're not treated like people who have needs, who are in need of a service. We're just treated like something that's you just take from it. And it was wild. It's been wild to interact with a system in which they treat it like it's a public good, and they want to provide for people. Fundamentally, it's kind of this very. You couldn't come up with a more clear delineation between two kinds of systems when it comes to healthcare.
Wow. And I think Americans are beginning to wake up to just how screwed over we are. We're one of the only countries, if not the only country, that doesn't have paid vacation time by law, which is something so simple, like paid maternity leave, paid paternity leave, paid vacation time, paid sick leave even. That is up to the whims and the discretion of your boss, and that's it. And so your story here really highlights the differences. And it's amazing when you're not sending $40 billion to Argentina and $38 billion to Israel, and you're not saying we're going to run Venezuela and Gaza, and you're not doing tax cuts and subsidies to billionaires. It's amazing the things you can afford for your own people.
And a $1.5 trillion defense budget that is on
where
the table.
They can't account for 63% of it, and they failed 8 audits in a row.
Yeah.
When you're not doing that, a slush fund for the most corrupt people in the world, then it's amazing what you can afford for your own people. It's kind of crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
It drives me insane when people still pull the whole well, how are you going to pay for it? And I'm just like, the way that we pay for it is by prioritizing it and not prioritizing all the nonsense we already pay for. That's how. I fought in Iraq and Afghanistan. When it's all said and done, we're going to spend between $6 to $8 trillion on those wars. We could have just done healthcare.
Yeah, and more.
and it was what's like. By the way, when we fought those wars, nobody's taxes went up.
Right.
Like we didn't have to go levy higher taxes on the population to fund those wars. We just paid for it. We just magicked the money out of nowhere. And the fact that somehow, like, in our political system, that so clearly just happened, and yet nobody even talks about it. Nobody even brings up the fact that somehow we can just invent money when it comes to subsidies to fossil fuel companies. We just invent money when it comes to pumping money into the financial system, when it comes to giving it to, like, spending it on needless, wasteful, horrific foreign wars. Then we just magic money out of nowhere. But the moment you got to provide healthcare, the moment we got to start talking about investment in infrastructure, investment in our society as an actual society, suddenly everybody's pockets gets turned out and we're all standing around wondering how we paid for it. And it's been frustrating to me for years that this like very clear reality just never even gets talked about on the national political stage. Whole other topic, we don't have to get into it now, but it's something that just grinds my gears constantly.
Hey, us too. So the future U.S. Senator from the great state of Maine, Graham Platner, tell everybody how they can, help support your campaign. I don't know if you're looking for whatever, canvassers, donation, whatever it is. Plug all that stuff.
Yeah, we're looking for everything. So first, if you're not in Maine, we can use your money. I'll just be entirely frank. We are trying to build, we have actually thus far built a ground game, a field operation that is second to none and in many ways has never really been seen in the history of the state already.
Wow.
So the more money we get, the more organizers we pay, the more offices we open. And that to me is kind of fundamental. That's how you build real politics again, a politics of organizing and a politics of power. And I don't take corporate PAC money. I don't take APAC money. We take money from people, and the only PACs we'll take money from are like labor union PACs that are ideologically aligned. Because of this, we need your money. I need your help. And but what we're just know that when you donate, this is not going to the usual shenanigans. Yes, we're going to run some TV ads. We have to. But this is about building out a field operation. And we've got 12,000 volunteers. If you want to volunteer and you're not in Maine, we can still use help with text banking. We can still use help with data collection. We have all kinds of opportunities for folks to volunteer if they want to and they're not here and they can't just go knock doors and canvass. If you want to sign up for any of this, you want to donate, grahamforsenate.com is the website. But it's I know people say this is a standard political thing. It's not about me, it's about us, but I'm like serious. Like this, and not in the sense that this is about winning a Senate seat. This is about rebuilding political movement in the United States, far more in the lens of the movement building of the labor movement, the movement building of the civil rights movement. That's the kind of politics we have to re-engage with if we're going to move into the future and win. And so we need everybody's help who's willing to give it.
Hey guys, we did an awesome interview with U.S. Senate candidate Graham Platner from Maine. Definitely sign up below on Substack to see the video version of the entire thing. You don't want to miss it. It was an awesome conversation. He goes deep on the issue of ICE and them murdering Americans in the street, and he wants to completely abolish ICE. A lot of spicy stuff in there. Don't miss it. Sign up below on Substack.